In this video, I'm going to be switching out my Silverstone Raven case in favor of the NR200P from Cooler Master. I've been using the Raven case for a few years now, and while it is a good product, it does have one major flaw, which is the lack of airflow. I'm curious to see if my system will run cooler and quieter with this new case. As I begin to take the PC apart, let me illustrate what I mean by lack of airflow. This case has two chambers, one for the graphics card and one for the rest of the system. Both of them share the same issue. While there is ample room for air to be taken in, once that air passes through a cooler, it gets exhausted inside the case with no clear exit point. This means that a lot of hot air will get trapped behind the side panel and will cause other components to heat up needlessly. You can see how this applies to the CPU chamber. Flipping the case around to show the GPU chamber, the same issue applies. Hot air will end up trapped behind the graphics card or under the side panel, and it might even be recirculated through the cooler. This is not an ideal scenario, as it means that my GPU can reach temperatures of up to 90 degrees under heavy load. I'm hoping that by reassembling the system in the Cooler Master case, this issue will be alleviated. So let me finish doing that and I'll be back with the results. Now that assembly is complete, I'll start off with the performance results. In Cinebench R23 there is basically no change in terms of score. The 2% increase I measured is well within margin of error. The same thing applies to 3D Mark. The results are almost identical between the two systems, which is to be expected. While temperatures were high in the old system, none of the components were thermal throttling. Things get interesting as we move on to the temperature results. In Cinebench, while the CPU temperature only went down by 1 degree, the same cannot be said for the rest of the components. I measured a 9-degree decrease in GPU temperatures and a massive 16-degree decrease for the SSD. It's important to note that Cinebench only stresses the CPU, so in theory the other components shouldn't get hot at all. The reason we see a decrease is that hot air doesn't have a chance to build up anymore in this new case, so everything stays close to idle temperatures, as it should. In 3D Mark, the results get even better. There's an 8-degree reduction in max CPU temperatures, although the average stays the same. Keep in mind that 3D Mark doesn't stress the processor in all its tests. There's also a 9-degree reduction for the GPU, and again the SSD temps are 16 degrees lower. As you can see, in both these tests, the system runs cooler overall, which goes to show just how important having proper airflow is. The tests so far were done with the default configuration for the NR200P case, with 2 fans exhausting hot air at the top. What makes this product so impressive is that it provides a lot of room for customizability. I took advantage of that, because the low-profile CPU cooler that I'm using could benefit from having a fresh air intake. So I moved one of the top fans to the side and ran the tests again. In Cinebench, with the side intake, there's a small 2-degree decrease in average CPU temperatures, but it comes at a cost, which is an increase of 5 degrees for the NVMe drive and 8 degrees for the SSD. The results in 3D Mark paint a similar picture. Again, the CPU runs slightly cooler, but the rest of the components run overall hotter. Basically, it's a trade-off, which shows that having that top exhaust is absolutely crucial in this case, and I could potentially get the best of both worlds by adding a 3rd fan. The last thing I wanted to check is if swapping out the mesh side panel for the tempered glass one would affect the temperatures negatively. Ideally, I'd like to use this glass panel for the final build, as I think it has a certain appeal. I'm happy to say that the tempered glass panel didn't seem to make much of a difference. Cinebench temperatures were consistent with the previous results. I even saw a 5-degree decrease for the GPU. In 3D Mark, it was a somewhat similar story, with the only exception being that the CPU ran 2 to 5 degrees hotter. These results again underline the fact that the most important aspect of this case is vertical airflow, which is something that I encourage you to prioritize if you plan on using it for your build. The last thing I tested were the noise levels. I found that the system runs overall quieter in the NR200P case, and that's thanks to those fans at the top constantly exhausting hot air, which means that neither the CPU nor the GPU fans need to spin to their maximum RPM, so they never get loud. The system is relatively quiet even when under load. I recorded both systems running in different scenarios, and now I'll let you judge for yourselves which one is quieter. In conclusion, I think the NR200P case from Cooler Master is an amazing product and one that I'd recommend to anyone looking to build a small form factor computer. It provides adequate cooling options and airflow while still having a small desk footprint. It also has a very good build quality, especially since it's one of the cheapest ITX cases on the market. Cheaper even than the Raven case I had before. I'm happy that I chose it for my build, and I thank you for watching this far. If this video was useful to you, please consider giving it a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.